Hi guys, it is the AFL Yank back here again doing another AFL tipping video. This is going to be my tips for round 21 of the 2021 AFL season. And round 20 was actually a really freaking good round. It was a pretty dang good round actually. Now there were a couple of blowouts here and there, but there were some pretty close games that were at times intense. Yeah, there were some pretty crazy games this week. Some really good games from, certain team perspectives this round. Like there were a lot of, interesting team perspectives this round. And yeah, don't really have kind of a little bit scrambled in words, but I have to say round 20 was actually a really good round. A lot of exciting footy, even with the Queensland, even with the situation going on in Queensland that resulted in the 3 games set to take place that were supposed to take place there on Saturday got delayed. But nonetheless, this was a really good round of footy. But yeah. So let's do a quick review of the 9 games. I got 5 out of 9. I tipped 5 out of 9 games right. Tipped 5 out of 9 games correct. I tipped the Dogs. The tips I got right were the Dogs, Cats, Melbourne. Were the Dogs, the Cats, the D's, the Swans, and Port. But yeah, pretty crazy round for the latter, pretty much, actually. Very crazy round for the latter, as things have massively changed. But yeah. This round started off with the Thursday matchup between St. Kilda and Carlton. The Saints were once finals hunters, but it seems like that might be all over. But it's looking like St. Kilda's finals hopes might be over. They need to be really competitive in the next 3 rounds, and I just do not see it happening. I unfortunately just don't see it happening. But yeah, a pretty heartwarming comeback pretty heartwarming comeback game for Charlie Curnow, as he scored his first goal in 761 days, and to complete all that off with an absolutely exciting win from the Blues. Now, I don't see the Blues making finals, but I definitely think they might make a run next year. As long as they just if the culture does continue to grow stronger, if Carlton at least tries to, make their culture, tries to fix their culture and, fix its... But yeah, if Carlton, can finally fix their culture and fix the reputation that they've had for years, I think they might have a shot for finals next year. They could. But unfortunately, I don't really see it happening. I mean, they do have, Sam Walsh and Patrick Cripps, I will admit, are really good players, but yeah, I don't know what, but yeah, it just seems like just a lot of, it seems like the culture's just been really bad at Carlton, but nonetheless, it was a very good win for them. Very good win against the Saints. And at Mars Stadium in Ballarat, it was the Dogs versus the Crows. And all I can say is rip Crom. The Doggies are pretty much set up for finals. They're basically locked up. They had a really strong performance. The Dogs are just too good right now. And with that, they're actually now back on the top of the ladder at 15-4. But yeah, the Dogs are pretty much locked in for finals at this point. Potentially might make definitely will probably make a run to the grand final. And yeah. Then Blundstone Arena. North Melbourne versus Geelong. Of course, the Roos were surprisingly really competitive early on, but yeah, at the end of the day, the Cats were just the better team. And I am liking the effort by North Melbourne as of recent. They've actually been surprisingly pretty solid as of late. Jaden Stevenson has contributed really well to this young group. Now, do I see the Roos making finals next year? Probably not, but they are on a team. They do have a promising future. They have a lot of young talent. They could make a run for top 8 in probably 2 years. Might even win a grand final before Gold Coast. And then at the MCG, we have one of the two big upsets of this round. Collingwood beating the West Coast Eagles. And my goodness, what an upset it was. The Eagles just cannot find ways to stay consistent. Like, the Eagles have been one of the most inconsistent sides in the AFL this year. But yeah, pretty good win from the Young Pies. A very good, strong win from them. The Pies definitely do have a lot of promise too, and I feel like they could possibly make a return to the 8 very soon. Not obviously this year, but I feel like they could make a run for the 8 next year or maybe in 2 years. Like, they're shaping things up really well. And I gotta give credit to, and I also gotta give credit to, my fellow ex-Swans player Darcy Cameron. He has contributed really well to the Pies. It is kind of unfortunate that he left, but hey, he's doing good things with the Pies. I gotta give him some credit. Gotta give him some respect. But yeah, the Eagles have just been so inconsistent. Just one of the most inconsistent sides in the AFL. Them and St. Kilda are probably the most inconsistent sides. But yeah, nonetheless, great win from the Pies. And speaking of the Suns, oh man, 98-point win from Melbourne against the Suns, 128-30. An absolutely pathetic performance from the Suns. It's really sad too because they were actually doing okay the past couple rounds, and now everything's just fallen apart for them. Literally, just everything crumbled for them. It was just a disaster of a game. Nearly a 100-point loss for the Suns, and at this point, if they still can't get their stuff together, like the whole culture, like if they can't fix their culture, I reckon they might actually fold. I mean, there have been teams in the past that actually had very rough starts to their franchise history. I mean, look at St. Kilda, who didn't make the grand final until 1913. I mean, look at St. Kilda. It took them 16 years to make their first grand final in 1913, where they actually lost, and then it would take almost another, 40, it would take 50 years later for them to win their first grand final. And then after that, it would take them 53 years to win their first premiership in 1966, and it's their lone premiership as well. And also North Melbourne. They didn't make their first grand final until 25 years in their existence in 1950 and didn't win a grand final until 1975. It took them 50 years. And finally, and also, look at Hawthorn. Hawthorn had a miserable start to their franchise history. Heck, they were arguably as bad as Gold Coast. The Hawks are absolutely trash in the 20s and 30s if you see their records. If you see the Hawks records back in like the 20s and 30s, like even before like the 50s, like if you look at all their stats, they were horrible. No one realizes that Hawthorne was just absolute garbage back in like the 20s and 30s. They were arguably as bad as Gold Coast, but yeah. But yeah, it took them 36 years to win their first premiership, which was, of course, in 1961, and that's when they became the team that everyone knows them for their premiership dominance. But yeah. Yeah, great win from the D's. Pretty much was expected no matter what the margin was. Just the D's have just been the all-around better side. And yeah. And then Tasmania, the Hawks have that Tasmanian Devil energy in them back. What a win against the Brisbane Lions. A massive upset win, winning by 2 goals. One of the biggest upsets of the 2021 AFL season for sure. Heck, the Hawks were like up by like at what, 53 points at one time, and then Brisbane tried to make a run, although they ended up falling short. But yeah, one of the most unexpected wins this round was, of course. But yeah, the Hawks, their first game without Alistair Clarkson, their legendary head coach, and things actually went very well for them. Like, I think they might avoid finishing bottom 4, but still, I am like very 50-50 on Hawthorn at this point. Like either they it's going to take them a while to make it to return to finals. It's either going to take a few years for them to return to finals, or they might actually find their form and continue their strong culture. I mean, if either one's happens, if either one of those happen, I would not be surprised. But yeah, very good win from the Hawks. And then, the game of the round and potentially the game of the year. A potential grand final preview of what could be a possible grand final matchup in 2023 or 2024. Essendon versus the Sydney Swans. Probably could potentially become one of the greatest rivalries of all time. It's one of the most underrated, as the Swans and Bombers have been going head to head against one another, against one another for years now. Like, most of the matchups we played against Essendon have gone down to the wire most of the time. And this was another fantastic game. The Swans found plenty of answers to overcome the Bombers' speedy midfield. Like, Jake Stringer, he was just super frustrating. Jake Stringer, he was just giving us a lot of problems. Like, Essendon just kept hitting torpedo goals just left and right. Like, after he scored like a couple of goals, Essendon just kept finding ways to respond, and it was a bit frustrating, but nonetheless, from a neutral fan standpoint, this was a fantastic game. But yeah, with this win, the Swans have officially locked up their spot for finals. They have locked in their place, and they actually moved up to 5th on the ladder with the Lions losing to Hawthorn. So yeah, the Swannies have finally moved up, and now we have a possible shot of moving up the top 4. We just need to hope that Port loses a game these next couple rounds if we want to make top 4. And I feel like it could happen. I feel like it's possible of happening. But yeah. Yeah, nonetheless, a great win from the Swans. Just an all-around fantastic win. Caleb Mills and Harry Cunningham contributed incredibly well in their returns from quarantine. Tom Papley was an absolute star, kicking 3 goals. Like, Papley was just a beast. Will Hayward, too, was fantastic as well. Buddy, despite of not really having that many goals, especially when he's playing against one of the teams that he plays really well against, he only did kick 2 goals, but still a very solid performance from Buddy, although I feel like he could have done better. And then the defense was just absolutely brilliant. Fantastic defensive efforts from Tom McCartan and Jordan Dawson. Heck, both of them looked like Leo Barry out there. Just absolutely fantastic performances from them. But yeah, I reckon that if we keep this up and fix, the problems we've been having in the first half where we start out very slow, oh my god. I'm feeling really confident that we'll win the 2021 Premiership. Feeling really confident about it. But yeah. And the next, Richmond losing to Freo. Oh, welcome back, Ninthman. Are they in... Oh, no, 11th men. Welcome back, 11th men. But yeah, Freo donning their classic jumpers. Just had they were just absolutely dominating the Tigers early on. And then the Tigers tried to make a comeback run, but in the end, they fell short. And honestly, all of us around the world are probably really happy that Richmond have been falling apart. But yeah, the Tigers really need to perform really well in these next 3 rounds if they want to make finals. Like, they need to play A+ footy. They cannot be losing games like this if they want to make finals. But yeah, Freo, no Nat Fife, and they perform incredibly well. Like, you gotta give them a lot of credit. The Freo were playing without Nat Fife as he's out for the rest of the season. They come in off the stadium donning their classic jumpers and just shock the Tigers. But yeah, great win for Freo. And finally, Marvel Stadium, GWS versus Port. This was a pretty close game heading late into the third, but yeah, Port ended up running away with the game. But yeah, Port ended up running away with this game. Like, overall, Port were just the better side, and unfortunately, they still remain in top 4. It's just kind of unfortunate from my perspective because, there's still plenty of time for us to make top 4, but yeah, with Port winning, that's not gonna make it easy. But it feels really good that we're in 5th now, at 13-6. I feel really good about our chances. I feel like Port could at least lose one of these next 3 games and we'll be in top 4. I feel really confident about our chances. But yeah, I feel really confident about the Swans' chances. Also, Josh Kennedy did really well too. He contributed incredibly well, as well as Errol Golden and Sam Wicks as well. The Swans all around performed incredibly well as a team, even with and overcame the pressure from Essendon. But yeah. Now let's get on to round 21. Friday night game. But yeah, beginning with Friday night, it is the Western Bulldogs versus Essendon. The Bombers coming off a close loss against the Sydney Swans in what potentially could be a grand final preview for 2023. Like, I reckon the Essendon Swans the Bombers Swans rivalry can be similar. I feel like it could be a potential rivalry similar to that of the Swans Eagles rivalry. I feel like it'll potentially happen and be one of the biggest rivalries of all time. We've already had a massive rivalry for years in the regular season. But yeah. But yeah, Dogs versus Essendon. The Bombers played incredibly well against the Swans. I'll definitely give them credit there. They played incredibly well. Got to give a lot of respect to them. Jake Stringer was just an absolute beast against us, but even with that, we found ways to stop them. And yeah. And I feel like this video might be an hour. But yeah, and then the Dogs, they're coming off the massive win against the Crows. Now, I would love to see Essendon beat the Dogs, but to be honest, unfortunately, I will have to say I feel more confident in the Dogs now than I am with Essendon. I feel like this has the potential of being a close game, though. I feel like it's possible, as long as Essendon continue to apply that pressure. Just gotta apply the pressure. But yeah, nonetheless, I'm gonna say Dogs. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a close game, but I'll say Dogs by 2 goals. I feel like they could run away with this game late. But yeah, nonetheless, I wouldn't be surprised if the Dogs won this game. But yeah. And then next at Marvel Stadium, it is Carlton coming off a massive win against St. Kilda versus the Gold Coast Suns, who are coming off potentially one of their worst losses in their club's young history. In a very bleak history where they haven't even made finals, even when they had the son of God himself, Gary Ablett Jr., who was playing his best footy with his time in the Gold Coast. But yeah, nonetheless, I obviously have to go with Carlton here. Just the Suns have just been absolutely piss poor as of late. They have just been horrendous. Well, not piss poor as of late, but they just played terrible. The Suns played awful last round. I have no confidence in them at all. Like, it seems like when things look promising for them, they just fall apart like that. Like, it's just really unfortunate to see, actually. But yeah, nonetheless, F in the chat for the Suns. Just they need help, man. They just need help. And then at GMHBA Stadium, it's Geelong versus GWS. The Giants coming off the loss against Port, and the Cats coming off the massive loss against... Well, the Cats coming off a very close win against North. Well, closer than it should have been. But, yeah. But nonetheless, the Cats, I feel like they'll get the job done here. I feel like feeling really confident about their chances, and, yeah. But yeah, I feel really confident about the Cats. I think they should definitely play well against the Giants. I do know that the Giants have Toby Green back, yes, but overall, just the Cats are the better side right now. And then next, at the MCG, it is Richmond versus North Melbourne. The Tigers coming off a very unfortunate loss. Tigers coming off a pretty disappointing loss against Freo. And North Melbourne, they're coming off a pretty decent performance against the Cats. Yes, I know they lost by 20, and they only scored 42 points, but still a pretty solid performance from the Cats, from the Roos nonetheless. But yeah, I reckon that if the Roos maintain their, at least maintain their pressure, I feel like they could definitely upset. I feel like an upset's possible. Heck, I'm just going to straight up say it. My upset of the round is definitely going to be North Melbourne. I just feel way more confident in their chances. I just feel way more confident in their chances than I am with the Tigers. The Tigers have just been mixed bag all around this The Tigers have just been a mixed bag all season, and honestly, they just need to wake up. But if that doesn't happen, I feel more confident at the Roos at this point. But yeah. I feel more confident in the Roos at this point than the Tigers right now. Just the Tigers have just been a mess as of late. But yeah. Upside of the round, North Melbourne. I feel like it's possible of happening. And the next, it's the Derby at what could potentially be at Adelaide Oval, although it's still a big question mark here. But yeah. The Adelaide Crows versus Port. Pretty big game coming up for both clubs. The Crows coming off a massive loss against the Dogs, and Port coming off a pretty big win against GWS. But yeah, obviously you got to go with Port. Just the Power have just been the better side all around than the Crows. I mean, the Crows have shown promises. Tex Walker is returned to his Tex Walker's in his best form again, but they're just too young. Just the Crows are just a way too young side to compete. But yeah, they're not there yet, but the Crows could definitely be a top 8 side in potentially in 2 years. Might be a year or two. Like, I feel like they have the potential of becoming a really good team. But yeah, nonetheless, gotta choose Port. The next, it's the West Coast Eagles versus Melbourne at Optus Stadium. The Eagles coming off a horrendous loss. Against oh my god. Yeah, the Eagles coming off a massively horrific loss against Collingwood. And they need to just wake up. They're really pressuring themselves too at this moment. But yeah, nonetheless, I'm feeling more confident in the D's right now than the Eagles. Like, I feel like this could potentially be a close game, but once again, just the Eagles the Eagles have just been at points of this season just really inconsistent. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles came out and played some really good footy. Unfortunately, I just think the D's are the better side. Then, in Tasmania, it is Hawthorn versus Collingwood. The Hawks coming off a really strong win. But yeah, the Hawks coming off a fantastic upset win against the Brisbane Lions. And the Pies... excuse me for these Instagram replies. I do get notifications on my laptop, so yeah, apologize for that. Apologies for that. But yeah, in UTAS, Tasmania, Hawthorn versus Collingwood. Both teams coming off some really dang good performances. The Pies coming off a massive upset win against the Eagles, and the Hawks coming off the upset win against Brisbane. But yeah, to be honest, I'm feeling more confident in the Hawks right now. I feel like I'm going to tip another upset here. I think Hawthorn can definitely win this game against Collingwood. They're starting to show why they're really good in Tasmania, and I feel like they could keep it up. But yeah, gonna tip the Hawks in an upset. I feel like it could definitely... I wouldn't be surprised if Collingwood won, but I feel like the Hawks might have the edge here. And yeah. And the next at Marvel Stadium, it is the Pride game. St. Kilda versus the Sydney Swans. The Saints coming off a really disappointing performance. Yeah, the Saints coming off a very disappointing performance against Carlton, and the Swans coming off potentially the biggest win of the season in the game of the year against Essendon. But yeah, once again, I am just way more confident in the Swans right now. Just they're a much better side than St. Kilda. I know the game last year. I know the game earlier this year. went down to the wire, but I feel like the Swans have matured as a side. I feel like the Swans have certainly matured as a side over the course of this year, and I have no problems tipping the Swans here. Just I am very, very confident in our chances. I feel like we'll probably win around by 25, probably 25 points. But I am really hoping that we do, change your antics in the first half, which I do feel confident about happening. I think they should definitely get that issue fixed out by the end of this round. And an update, just got an update. We're playing Saturday night, I believe, which is definitely going to be awesome. But yeah. And then the last game of the round, it is Freo versus the Brisbane Lions. The Lions coming off a terrible loss against Hawthorn, and Freo coming off a massive upset against Richmond. I feel like this game could definitely go to Freo, but unfortunately I just think the Brisbane Lions are the much better side, and I think they'll definitely find ways to recuperate from last round. But yeah, those are my tips for the 2021, for round 21. Gonna do a quick squiggle prediction just to show you my margins of how these games will go. But yeah, Dogs versus Essendon, I'm going to tip the Dogs to win by 2 goals. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a competitive game. Carlton versus Gold Coast, I'm actually going to tip the Blues to win pretty big here. I'll say 31 points. And just like that, Carlton are in the 8. Geelong versus GWS, I'm going to tip the Cats to win this game. I feel like they'll win by... I could see them winning big. I'll say 33 points for the Cats. Richmond versus North. I'm going to tip this here. Upset of the year. This is going to be the biggest upset of the year. I'm going to tip North Melbourne to win by 10 points. Biggest upset of the year in my books. And the next, Port against the Adelaide Crows. Really more confident. I'm more confident in Port right now than the Crows, and I feel like Port might get a big win. 43-point win for Port. And then next, West Coast versus Melbourne. I wouldn't be surprised if the Eagles made this game close, but I think the D's are just the overall better side. I'll say the D's win by 9 points. Hawthorn versus Collingwood at York Park. This one I think will definitely be a very entertaining game, but I think the Hawks will close out the game in the end. I'll say they win by 14 points. But yeah, another big upset here. St. Kilda versus Sydney. Gotta go with the Swans. I'm going to say 27 points. I say we'll win this game by 27 points. And Freo versus the Brisbane Lions. Going to go with the Lions to win this game by 21 points. I think they should definitely recuperate well from last round. And here is the final ladder. Dogs first, Cats second, D's third, Port fourth, Swans fifth, Lions sixth, Eagles seventh, and the Blues in eighth. Yeah, Carlton are in the 8 in this scenario. Freo 9th, Giants 10th, Essendon 11th, Tigers 12th. Yeah, 12th man. St. Kilda 13th, Hawks 14th, Pies 15th, Suns 16th, Crows 17th, and the Roos in 18th. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I am the AFL Yank signing out. Car in the Swannies, Swam 2021 premieres.